العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. رب زدني علما رب يسر ولا تعسر وتم بالخير. ثم أما بعد. الحمد لله. To you all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Last week we started a new course, which is the Usoolul Fiqh, the origins of Islamic law. And this is the first time we're studying this course, or the syllabus, or the subject here in Darul Ummah Masjid. Definitely in my time, but I'm quite confident maybe even before this, because Usoolul Fiqh is not a subject that is commonly taught to musallis, to general public in this way. But there is a reason why we at Darul Ummah, why I've decided to teach this subject to musallis, to Darul Ummah community, to our community. And that is because knowledge, like we say, is power. But this particular type of knowledge is extremely powerful because it aids and supports and helps a Muslim, helps a student, helps a musalli, helps a believer to understand, to be able to comprehend how Islam works, how Islamic law works, how we as Muslims are to deal with, to appreciate, to understand, to practice the Quran and the Sunnah, which is wajib and incumbent upon us to follow, to understand and to practice. This is the subject of alimiyya, of Islamic studies in like a university level or maybe college and etc. But us as general public, having this knowledge will help us to appreciate the sophistication of Islamic law. So that means we'll be more impressed by Allah, appreciate Allah. It will allow for us to be more impressed by Allah's deen, Allah's legislation, Allah's Quran, Allah's Sunnah. So that will make us better servants of Allah. It will make us more appreciative of how our very beautiful, very sophisticated, very complex, and yet a very thorough Islamic law system works. Because one would have you believe that, the Quran and Sunnah and how it's done and how it's organized is a matter of just opinion, or matter of something which has no basis. The Islamophobes, the atheists, the agnostics, those who try to attack Islam will try to say these are just Muhammad's words, a'udhu billahi min dhalik, and this is just a system which is based on hearsay, if you like. But studying a subject like the Quran, tafsir, hadith, and Usoolul Fiqh also will show you how solid, how based, how deeply rooted, how sophisticated, how interesting and beautiful our legal system is and what it's based upon. Okay? So there are many, many benefits of studying this subject. And of them also, as we've said in our last lesson, is that it helps a Muslim to be able to decipher, to understand, to navigate the various different types of da'wah approaches, where Muslims are left confused a lot of the times. Someone will bring you a particular evidence and say, this is from the Quran and this is from the Sunnah, and try to use that as evidence to prove a point, whereas the ayah may be saying otherwise. The hadith may be saying the complete opposite. So knowing how to understand or how to use Quran and Sunnah as evidence will help the believer to become more intelligent, become more clued on, not become a fool to those who try to tamper with, try to pervert, try to wrongly, misquote and wrongly associate evidences from our Quran and our Sunnah. So appreciation of Allah and His deen, having confidence in our deen, and also having the confidence in ourselves to be able to say, we're not going to become fooled by any person that just comes and says, oh, this is in the Quran and so I think this means that, or this is in the hadith and so it means that. No, rather, the ayah being from the Quran and the hadith being from the Sunnah is accepted, as long as it's authentic, of course, if it's from the hadith. But then, are you quoting it? Are you saying it in the right place is also another question. I can't get an ayah which is talking about something different and try to apply it to mean something else. And a lot of the times, this is maliciously intended to try and divide Muslims, to try and disunite Muslims, to try and cancel out other Muslims, using an ayah of the Quran to say, no, no, no. But the ayah itself has not been quoted correctly, understood correctly, contextualized correctly. And so an introduction to this subject, we're not going to become specialists in Usoolul Fiqh any way, shape or form, but it's an opening for you to know that there is such a subject in which if I wanted to understand, learn more and appreciate more, I can pursue this subject because I found interest in it and I found it to be beneficial for me. And this is the subject of Usoolul Fiqh. Last week we spoke about the evidences upon which our Islamic legal system is based upon. The origins, the Quran, the Sunnah, the Ijma' and the Qiyas. We spoke about this last week. Then we gave an introduction to and a ta'rif to what the Quran is. What do we mean by the Quran? Okay? And we gave a definition and an introduction to the Book of Allah and not the Sunnah, what the Sunnah means, because that discussion is still coming. So the first half of this book, the first half of this course will be focusing on the Quran, and the second half of this book will be focusing upon the Sunnah. So, in the first half of this book, in the first part of the discussion, we will be looking at khas and am, specific and general wordings in the Quran, how they work, how they to be understood. Okay? So the Quran discussion is first and the Hadith discussion is second. In order for us to have a somewhat idea of where this discussion will be going, I will give you an overview of it from the page of contents in this book, okay? And like I said, you can buy this book, it's very cheap, and you will inshallah follow along. It's called the Mabadi al-Usul, an Introduction to Islamic Jurisprudence by Mufti Sa'id Ahmad Palanpuri, which has been translated and is sold by Azhar Publications. So the first discussion on page number 13, as we've already covered, is around the Book of Allah, the definition of it. Okay? The second discussion which we began on page number 18 was now when a word is placed, when a word is in a language, when a word is in the language, when the word is set to mean something, from the origin, from the beginning of that word, what is intended by it, is the intended meaning a specific meaning or a general meaning? Specific meaning, we said, for example, someone like Zayd or Khalid. That means a specific person, that particular person that you're referring to, or one or two or three. One means one, two means two, three means two. That's a specific word for a specific meaning. Whereas the general meaning is that the word has been made, the word has been intended with it, the word has been set to mean from it a plural meaning, a meaning of more than two or three. So for example, Muslimin. When you say Muslimin, it means a lot of Muslims. Mushrikeen, a lot of mushriks. When you say Qawm, a nation, the word is Qawm, nation. It's a single word, but its intended meaning is a lot. It's important to understand what the word has been set for, what the intended meaning behind the word is, so that when you read a book, or when we read specifically the Book of Allah and find in it a word, all of the words we are able to understand what is the intended meaning behind this word. Is it a specific meaning? Is it a general meaning? So the first part of the discussion, التقسيم الأول باعتبار الوضع, which is that to first understand what is the intended meaning behind words. Is it a specific meaning? Or is it a general meaning? Is it a mushtarak meaning? Or is it a mu'awwal meaning? Which is that a mushtarak meaning is where basically a word has got more than one meaning. Okay? Mu'awwal is where one of the multiple meanings is given preference over it. So from the onset, is the word indicating singular or plural? Is it indicating multiple meanings? Or is it indicating one particular meaning over other meanings? That's the first part of the discussion. It's going to be a bit of a brain, it's going to pick your brains a bit, maybe give you a bit of a headache as well. But you have to remember the chain of thoughts. And the train of thoughts to be able to understand. And like we said before, this subject is not for everybody. Some will find it a bit boring, they find it a bit dense, a bit complicated. But we are putting it out there so that you know the subject exists, and so that for those who have an interest can study it further. التقسيم الثاني باعتبار الاستعمال. So the first analysis of the word is what was the intended meaning? What was the word set for? What was the word set for? The second way of looking at it, or the second category, is how is it actually used? This is what it was set for, but how is it actually used? Is the used meaning from the word the haqiqi, the actual literal meaning of the word? Or is it majazi? Or is it the metaphorical meaning of the word? Is the use of the word to understand the direct meaning, like for example, you are divorced? Or is it the use of the word al-kinaya, which is to mean indirectly, to say for example, we are separated? What do you mean by that? Do you mean divorce, or do you mean separation as in take a break, as in go to your mom's house, have a separate? So, on the one hand, the first part of it is, what was the meaning intended by the word from its wada', or from its original initiation? Then how the word is used. That's the second part of the discussion. The third part of the discussion is how clear the meaning of the word is. باعتبار ظهور المعنى وخفائه. So a word, the meaning may be very clear or maybe unclear. How clear it is comes in 4 levels. How unclear it is comes also in 4 levels. So how clear it is? Clear, very clear, extremely clear, super clear. For example, I'll give you an English way of saying, yeah? Unclear, very ambiguous, and totally not understandable. So the first part of the discussion was, what was the intended meaning behind the word? The second part of the discussion was, what is the word being used for in this particular context, in this particular ayah? What's the isti'mal of it? What's the usage of it? The third part of the discussion is how, in terms of clarity of the meaning. And inshallah, when we come to it, bi'idhnillah, we'll touch the subject briefly today. Bi'idhnillah, you will see what we mean. I'll give you a quick, a few words so that you think, you're not completely lost. For example, when it comes to the clarity in meaning, there is a word that's al-zahir, which means clear. The opposite of it is al-khafi. The most clear meaning you can have in Quran, the most clear meaning you can have in the Quran, is the type of an ayah that is called al-muhkam. Muhkam means Allah has specifically made it clear what that means, and it's not possible to mistranslate it or to misunderstand it or to understand in a different way. Only someone who was intentionally trying to, misrepresent the Quran may try to misunderstand it. But Allah has made the ayah al-muhkam. So the clearest meaning in a word of the Quran, in an ayah of the Quran, is called al-muhkam. Second clearest is al-mufassar. Third clearest is al-nas. And the fourth clearest, or the least clear if you like, is al-zahir. So that shows the level of clarity from the meaning of a word. On the opposite, there is layers of unclarity. So an unclear word, the meaning is unclear, is called al-khafi. Then there's a further level down, okay, which is even less clear, which is the al-mushkil, the one that has got, the meaning is complicated. It's got the meaning is unclear, ambiguous. And then is al-mujmal, the third level of unclarity. And then al-mutashabih. Al-mutashabih is the least clear in terms of intended meaning. An example is alif lam mim. Does anyone know what alif lam mim means? Mufassirun, they try to give it meaning based upon ra'i, ijtihad, based upon aqwal of salaf and etc. But ultimately, the words, the letters alif lam mim are mutashabih letters. And these ayat al-mutashabih. And Allah said about this in the Quran. Okay? That هو الذي أنزل عليك الكتاب منه آيات محكمات هن الكتاب وأخر متشابهات. In the Quran, there are certain ayat which are muhkamat. The meaning is absolutely crystal clear. For example, Allah, إن الله على كل شيء قدير. Allah is able to do all things. Allah Himself is saying that He is able to do all things. And the meaning is so clear. There is no other intended, there could be no other intended meaning except for the fact that Allah knows everything, or Allah is able to do everything. In contrast to that, from the muhkamat, the opposite is al-mutashabih, yes, it's like alif lam mim, or alif lam ra, or kaf ya ayn sad. These ayat or these words, the meaning is unclear. Now, stage by stage, I'm just trying to give you an overview. Okay, first discussion, what was the word set to mean when it was originated in the language? What's the wada', what's the meaning of it? The second is the meaning of the word. What is it used for isti'mal? The third layer of it is how clear is the meaning? Is it wadih, zahir jiddan, muhkam, or is it mutashabih? The fourth category, the fourth stage of the discussion, and what we're discussing about, by the way, all of this is understanding the book of Allah, the Quran of Allah. We haven't come to hadith yet. So the fourth discussion will be around the dilala, the indication of the word, the indication of the ayah. What is it pointing you towards? Like we said before in one of those videos, like we have the dalil, evidence, the Quranic ayah, the hadith. But there is something called dalil, which is the evidence, but then we have dilala. So understanding this way, the dalil is the torch, is the light. And the dilala is what it is pointing you towards. Is it pointing you towards the right, towards the left? What's the intended meaning behind it? So the fourth discussion is, these ayat which we've now, or these words that we've understood, what it was intended, what was it set for originally, what was it used for, how clear or unclear it is. Now, having had these three discussions, what is the dilala of it? What is it trying to point us towards in terms of Islamic law, in terms of Islamic Sharia? Is it pointing us towards this or that? And then in this discussion of the Kitab of Allah, the book of the Quran, we will then go into the different types of al-khas. Khas was the first thing, with khas and am. So for example, from the different types of khas, specific meanings or specific words, is al-amr, command, and nahi, prohibition. Okay? And then other discussions around the amr and nahi. Then after all of that, we'll come to a discussion, or the second part of the book, which is the research or the study around the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. So then what we'll do at the beginning of that, just like we did with Kitab of Allah, with the book of Allah, with the Quran, is we'll define what sunnah is. I'm giving you an overview. The book will define for us what is sunnah and the types of sunnah. What are the different types of sunnah? What is mutawatir? The word mutawatir, what does it mean? What is al-mashhur? What is khabrul wahid? Okay? Then the level of evidence taken from the khabar, the hujjiyya, how much of an evidence is the khabar of wahid? In Usoolul hadith, in Mushtarak al-hadith, we spoke about the meaning of sahih, of sahih, sahih, and sahih li ghayri, and hasan li ghayri. Then we spoke about da'if, and then we spoke about da'if, like the da'if hadith. Now in this Usul al-Fiqh discussion, we will also have a similar discussion around the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. In that we will try to understand what is a mutawatir type of hadith, which is so many times narrated that it's impossible for it to be a lie or fabricated. What is mashhur, the second level down? What is khabar al-wahid? This will be a part of the discussion as well. After having spoken about the Quran and the Sunnah, what do you think we're going to speak about next? Ijma', correct. So we'll have the third topic will be the discussion around al-ijma', the definition of consensus, and some explanations around that. And what do you think the fourth discussion is going to be? About qiyas, which is analogy. So what will we do first in qiyas? We will define it first, isn't it? That's how it works. Whenever you go into a new subject, a new topic, the first thing they do is they define it linguistically and then technically. What does it mean in this particular context? So when it comes to qiyas, an analogy, the first thing that we'll do in page number 88 is defining al-qiyas. And then we'll also understand the conditions of qiyas and analogy being correct. You can't just make any example and try to make any ruling from any example. Because a lot of the times a person is taking an example and trying to apply it in a wrong way, misapply it. And that's called al-qiyas ma'al-fariq, where you think the person who's giving the evidence thinks, oh yeah, it's exactly the same situation, but it's not exactly the same situation. There are differences because the conditions of al-qiyas being accurate have not been fulfilled. So then we'll understand the conditions of the qiyas, the ruknul qiyas, the types of qiyas. Okay? Things that prohibit or things that make qiyas impossible. All of that inshallah. Then after that, after having spoken about Quran, Sunnah, Ijma' and Qiyas, the next thing we'll do is then go into the fruits of all of that discussion. The end result of it is to understand the legal rulings. What do they mean and how are they reached? Of them is fard. How does fard work? What does it mean and how is it reached? Wajib. What does it mean and how is it reached? How is evidence enough to make something wajib and not sunnah? Does that make sense? Where is that bar? Where is that benchmark which makes something from being sunnah to wajib and from wajib to fard? Why are different actions taking different levels of importance, right? For example, in salah, there are certain arkan. They are fara'id. For example, the standing is fard. The ruku' is fard. The takbirat tahrima is fard. The sujood is fard. The tashahhud is fard. The final sitting is fard. Certain things are fard, but other things, to recite some Quran is fard. But other things are not fard, they're wajib. Next level down. For example, from the things that are wajib in salah is the first sitting of at-tahiyyat. The first of the two sittings in the 4 rak'at salah. It's not fard, it's wajib. Next level down. So the question is, the fact that it's fard and wajib, khalas, we've already taken that for granted in fiqh. We've understood that. Now we're saying, let's go back a bit. Why, why, O mashayikh, why, O fuqaha, have you made this one fard and this one wajib? What's the reasoning behind it? What's the evidence behind it? What pushed this hukum to become fard and that to become wajib? What's the difference in terms of backup and support and daleel behind it? So, for example, the first at-tahiyyat is wajib. The recital of at-tahiyyatu lillah wa salawatu wa tayyibat is also wajib. The recital of Fatiha is wajib. But to recite some Quran is fard. So why is any Quran to be recited fard and recital of Fatiha wajib? Why is it one level? What's the difference here? What are they trying to say? I'm talking from a Hanafi perspective, of course, here. So what is fard? What is wajib? What is sunnah? What is nafal? What is al-haram? What is makruh? And so on. And then finally, before we end our discussion on this topic, which is a brief introduction, all of that is a brief introduction, by the way, none of it is very detailed, is the types of legal obligations. Al-azima and rukhsa. The original amount that you need to do to fulfill your obligation, and rukhsa, which is a dispensation and a discount from the sharia at certain times. For example, rukhsa is that you pray when you're in safar as 2 rak'at, isn't it? Or that when you're traveling you don't have to fast, but you can if you want to. It's preferred that you do. So as I'm looking at your faces right now, I can see that your face brighten up when you hear a word that you're familiar with, like fard. Yes, I know what fard is. I know wajib, yes, that makes sense. Yes, salah and accept that sense. But the other words are, some of them is going to be new. And don't be intimidated or don't feel too confused, because when you hear these words for the first time, second time, third time, when you're analyzing, when you're trying to get to grips with it, when you're trying to get your mental thoughts in correct order by memorizing what comes first, what comes second, it's tough work. It's like maths, you know. Who's good at maths here? Mushay, be good at maths? Yeah. So those who like maths are generally said to be good at logic, and those who are good at maths are also said to be, you know, somewhat more acquainted. I find it a bit easier when it comes to usul, because it's a lot to do with equations. This equation produces this result. So those who are usually good at maths, they find it a bit more easy to understand. But ultimately, the subject is for everybody. And again, it's not to make you a mufti or Shaykhul Islam. It's not for you to go home and start giving fatwa upon your sisters and your brothers, or for you to go online and say, oh look, I've done usul for a few lessons in an open class in Darul, and so now I know what dalil is, I know what dilala is, I know what istidlal is, I know all of this stuff, and so now I will give you refutations based on my deep knowledge of 2 40-minute classes in Darul Ummah. It doesn't work like that. Okay, this is for us to, like we said, some of the intentions, some of the purposes to appreciate Allah's deen, to appreciate Allah and His deen, to know how sophisticated it is, and to not be taken as a fool a lot of the times. Hopefully that will help you with that regard, inshallah, to a certain extent. So now, what we'll do is we'll go straight back to where we left off last week, which was Al-Am. We spoke about specific. In fact, I'll give you a quick recap of Al-Am and Al-Khas and then Al-Am. So now, when the word was set, if the meaning that was set with it was a specific item, then this is called Al-Khas. For example, when someone is born, they call him Zayd. They mean Zayd, as in this person. When the number was set 2, when the Lughawiyin said Ithnan or Thalatha, they meant by 2 or 3. That was the intended and the set meaning for it. In opposition to that, if the word was set to not mean specific, but to mean general, then this is called Al-Am. We'll give examples. And the examples were Muslimin, Mushrikeen, Qawm, and Raht. These are words, they were set to mean multiple. They were set to mean general meanings. What we didn't say last week was that Am is of 2 types. Am, general meaning or generality, is of 2 types. The Am from which nothing has been specified in the Quran. So imagine, when you say Am, imagine a big piece of pizza. Okay? Does that make sense, yeah? When I say Am, imagine a round pizza. This Am, this big pizza. You're Italian, right? Yeah? So this big pizza, has a slice been taken out of it or not? That's the question here. The first type of Am is where the general meaning, nothing has been taken out of it, nothing has been made khas from it. So the pizza has been left whole. That is like, Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Allah said, I know everything. This meaning, it will remain whole and complete and general forever. Someone can't say, Allah knows everything except. Because when you say except, you're trying to take a pizza slice out. Because you're trying to cut some of it off. You can't do that. So Al-Khas, Am lam yukhas anhu shay. The general meaning from which nothing specific has been cut out. Example, Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Allah knows everything. If someone today came and said, well, Allah knows everything except for the daily matters of our taqdeer, we will say, Ya Habib, you're not Sunni. Okay? You're a Mu'tazili. Because the Mu'tazilis have this problematic aqidah that Allah knows the bigger items of taqdeer, but He does not know the specific and the details, the minutiae of taqdeer. Okay? And they have their reason behind that. And one of the reasons behind that is called at-tahsin and at-taqbih al-aqli. They say if Allah knew all the details of everything, then how can Allah allow sins? So they try to override Allah's speech with logical reasoning. Is that allowed? Can you override? Allah says, Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Allah said He knows everything. Or you think, well, logically, it doesn't make sense for Allah to know all the bad things, so therefore Allah doesn't know the bad things, so therefore you're making istithna of it, so you're taking some of it out. Is that allowed? No, because Allah's speech is profound, is authentic in its origin and authentic in its meaning, and so therefore you can't cut a slice out. So Am lam yukhas minhu shay. So that's the first type of Am, first type of general meaning where nothing has been made an exception. No portion has been taken out. Then there's a second type of Am, which is khussa anhu al-ba'd. The piece of pizza, a slice has been taken out. Okay? Like, for example, now try to understand what we're saying, and before you think you're disrespecting, we're not comparing ayah of the Quran to pizza. We're trying to give you an example to see what's whole and some of it taken out. That's the example. We're not saying, hey, an ayah of the Quran is like pizza. so you can eat it. No, no, we're not saying that. We're saying, well, the reason why we're giving the whole pizza example is to say whole and part. General or big and small. That's the meaning that's being intended from it, yeah? So when Allah said, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ, Allah has made trading transactions halal. He gave us a whole meaning. Allah said, transactions are halal. But then Allah took something out of it. وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى, and Allah has prohibited usury. So any trading with usury is taken out. Any trading with usury is taken out from that whole meaning, the whole general intended first part. The riba is taken out. But still, the majority is still permissible. So we find most of the transactions are permissible, isn't it? You can trade in so many different types of goods. You can buy and sell, you can auction, you can trade, you can be investing, you can do mudaraba, you can do musaqa, you can do, tijara. So many different types of transactions you can do. But Allah has made usury, however, haram. So this is am. Allah says trading is allowed. Khussa minhu ba'd, some of it has been prohibited. Why are we saying this? We're saying that am is a word from which a general, a bigger meaning is understood. And this is two types. One am from which nothing has been taken out, nothing has been specified. And another am from which something has been specified. Like for example, وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَى. Do you understand that, yeah? Has that become clear? So first we said, when the word was set for a meaning, it could be set for the meaning of a specific item, like khas, or it could be set for the meaning of a general meaning, which is am. Am now, the second type, has got two branches. The general, from which no exception is made. For example, إِنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٍ. Allah knows everything. Allah is able to do all things. Are there any exceptions to that? So if the man came and said, can Allah fit the entire universe in an egg? The answer automatically is Allah is able to do everything. Okay? Allah is able to do everything. Now, what if someone asked you a nonsensical question? Someone said, if Allah... Actually, we'll skip that because that becomes a bit to do the aqidah and philosophy and falsafa. That's a different subject. We'll not go there today. Maybe another day in the future. So am from which nothing has been taken out, and am from which something has been specified. Let's move on now because otherwise we'll be here forever. The next type of word which has been set with a meaning is a word that's been set down for. Or the word which has been set with multiple meanings from the beginning. For example, the ta'arif, the word which is al-Mushtarak. There are some words which have multiple meanings from its origin. The word jariya. What does jariya mean? Jariya means slave girl. Jariya also means ships on the sea. Anything that runs basically. Ships on the sea, okay, are called jariya. A slave girl is also called a jariya. Now, here this word is mushtarak. It has multiple meaning and both of the meanings are equal. In that, the word is used for both. Okay? If I was to say, is it like beef? Beef as in food? Or beef as in beef? Right? That's not what we're talking about here because that word beef, original meaning is beef. If you open the Oxford Dictionary, beef means the flesh from cows, yeah? Beef here in local, in the ends, they call it beef because it's a metaphorical meaning you can say. Or you can say it's mushtarak depending on where you are. Like in Tower Hamlets, if someone says, do you want beef? If you go up to someone and say, Akhi, do you want beef? They could easily misunderstand it to mean maybe beef or that. So, that discussion aside, we're saying certain words from the beginning are set with multiple meanings. For example, jariya. For example, al-qur. Al-qur is another word, yeah? Qur is in the Quran, means hayd, menstrual periods, or it means tuhur time. So when a word from its onset has got two or more meanings, it's called al-mushtarak. Okay? Can we think of some examples? Think of certain words, in English for example, which from the onset has got more than one meaning. Sorry? Coconut. No, from like originally from the Oxford Dictionary. Coconut. We're not talking about colloquial or metaphorical or slurs. We're talking about in the English language, from the beginning, a word has got more than one meaning. Sorry? How? What does it mean? Whether as in the Joe. And then what's the other one? Whether you go there or there. Now that's W-H-E. And this is the other one is W-E-A. Whether and whether. Whether and whether. That's what the hadith is meaning. But let's think of it. Someone give me an example of English language. So what's the question? In English language, there is a word which has got more than one meaning. Sorry? Like. Like as in similar, and like as in the emotion. Okay. Okay. Let's think of nouns. Let's think of names of things which has got more than one. Do you have any examples in Bangla? Bangla ভাষাতে কোনো word আছে শব্দ মাঝে দুইটা meaning, two or more meaning in one word. এক শব্দের মাঝে কয়েকটা meaning আর কি সমান জায়গা. Could be equally intended. For example, company. Company is a company, a business company or companionship. Okay? There are so many more examples. So in other words, a mushtarak word is the word which has got more than one meaning from the onset. We're not saying that one is metaphorical and one is literal. That's something else coming later. We're saying a word has got more than one meaning from the onset, that means it's called mushtarak. Then there's another type of word, is called al-mu'awwal. Al-mu'awwal meaning when a word has got more than one meaning, however, it's become clear that one of them is being intended over the other. That means it's been given ta'wil, it's been given preference. There are indicators, there are qara'in, there are evidences. There is ijtihad which proves that when a word has got multiple meanings, it's called mushtarak. But however, from these multiple meanings, if one has been given precedence, more importance, more strength, then this is called ta'wil has been done for it. It's become mu'awwal. It's become mu'awwal. It's been given precedence. It's been given preference. Okay. So these four words are referring to meanings of words from the onset. Meanings of words from the onset. Is it meaning specific? Is it meaning general? Is it meaning mushtarak? Multiple meanings from one word? Or is it al-mu'awwal where there are multiple meanings from one word, but one has been given precedence and importance or preference over the other? Now we come to the second categorization, التقسيم الثاني, which is باعتبار الاستعمال. أهلا وسهلا بالشيخ. مرحبا شيخ. Please, Sheikh, you come at the front and we need to meet you, Sheikh. Alhamdulillah. أهلا وسهلا أستاذ. We're being honored by Sheikh.
Now it's too big. I can't do it.
Congratulations. But Sheikh Abdul Rahman has been appointed as the new Amir President of Dawah al-Islam. Which is the organization that runs Darul Ummah, Jama'atul Ummah, Darul Ummah Academy, all the Darul Ummahs, everything. He's the boss at the moment.
He's your boss as well.
Sheikh, come and sit down here.
No.
Come, Sheikh. Now I wanted to give us a few words. Ustad, come on this side, please. Come on the right hand side. Okay, we'll wrap it up inshallah, but before we do that, I just want the Sheikh to say a couple of words for our... So I'll give you an introduction. We are basically recently started the topic of Usoolul Fiqh.
Allahu Akbar Kabira.
We've been doing fiqh for about 6-7 years, but Usoolul Fiqh, the reason why I'm explaining...
Which part of Usul you're doing now?
We're doing like an overview
of Mabadi.
Usul,
MashaAllah.
okay? And the reason, Sheikh, is so that our students appreciate Allah's deen more, are impressed by Allah's religion further, and also to be able to decipher when someone is using evidence the wrong way and in the right way. Because a lot of the times people are using dalil, but they're intending the wrong meaning from it. So to make our musallis and our attendees intelligent to be able to say, no, this evidence should be used in this particular way. Just the introduction. We're not expecting them to become mufti or faqih or shaykh, but it's an opening. It's an opening so that they can become intrigued, and if they want to if they like it, they can study it more in the future.
Barakallah fiqh.
Sheikh, give us a few words inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Fadilatul Shaykh Imam Ashiq Azhari, Jazahullah Khair. May Allah bless our Imam and give him more strength to do the khidmah of this Ummah, inshallah. And inshallah, this learning, teaching will go a long way, inshallah. When studying Usoolul Fiqh, that's very, very important, interesting. When you know the Usoolul Fiqh, then you get that taste of the fiqh, taste of the deen and ibadah, and the logic, and the wisdom, and the reason. And Allah Ta'ala will opening your eyes. Not only these eyes, they're the eyes in the heart as well. And that will be opening up by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And you love Allah's deen even more. And you understand what is right and wrong. That's why this knowledge is amana. This knowledge is very, very important for all of us. And our Ustaz, he's teaching us, may Allah bless him. And all of us will be sadaqah jariyah for him. And alhamdulillah, what I'm saying is I'm your brother. As I have been in Darul Ummah, I say Darul Ummah is my home. And Darul Ummah is not all Ummahs of my home as well. You know, wherever I am, Jamiatul Ummah in here, I have so many students here of Jamiatul Ummah, I can see them. I'm so pleased they are here as well. And inshallah, we together we make a difference, inshallah. And this last 2 days I'm thinking, what I'm thinking, let me tell you honestly. I'm thinking about our Imam Ashiq, our Imam Mishkat, Sheikh Nasrullah. For example, few of you, your names, your face come in my mind as well. And the Yusuf, and others, few others. We want to make a new team. And they will be leading this Da'watul Islam, Darul Ummah, Shadwell, Red Breeze, Honchas, and Grosbrook, and Luton coming, and Manchester, Birmingham, everything we have, and they will make more, inshallah. This leadership has to go to them. We have done a little bit, but they will do much more, inshallah. That was my intention. That's why I have given responsibility today. First thing I wanted to see Imam, because I have a very, very big expectation about him, inshallah, to make a, he made lots of difference, isn't it? You know it more than anybody, because you come so often. And inshallah, he will continue, and we'll make dua for him, we'll support him, inshallah. And carry on your, inshallah, vision, your knowledge, and your learning, inshallah. We're making dua for you, and we're with you, inshallah. Any support needed from us, we're always there, inshallah. And Ustad Farid Ahmad Reza Sahab, one of our Murabbi, is here, should remember. And I was very hesitant to take the oath, and he was insisting me, encouraging me. Just now.
So this is like post-oath.
Yes.
So you feel nervous?
And you know, I feel very nervous. And look, I got this pen as a gift from Ustaz. And I said it's a love, and it's a dua, and it's something very, very precious. That's why I'm very, very proud. And he's here. I'll be requesting him to say something for us, inshallah.
Yes,
and we can be
please.
benefited, then inshallah we're done.
Let me see if the mic will
I am a Talib al-Ilm. I'm a student, learning, and you are also learning. Alhamdulillah, we are on the same boat. Inshallah.
Ustad, I need to get a mic.
Journey very easy and productive.
All right. No, inshallah, Sheikh, give me 1 minute, inshallah. Let me just wrap it up. It's nearly Isha anyway. Brothers, inshallah, with that discussion, in our next week, bi'idhnillah, we'll go to the next chapter. So until then, you can wait for Salatul Isha. We'll wrap it up for now. Subhanakallahumma ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.